Coming up on this episode of Common Denominator.
The top two would be clean up the nutrition, eat a low glycemic anti-inflammatory diet, and heavy strength training. Those are the two big ones. You do those two, right? You are going to be very, very close, okay, to your genetic potential, okay, within a year or two. I promise.
Hi, and welcome to Common Denominator, where we shine a light on people striving to make the world a better place. Today, a physician with expert strategies on how you can live a longer, sharper, healthier life. Dr. Brett Osborn is the section chief of neurosurgery at St. Mary's Medical Center, a level 1 trauma center. He's a board-certified neurosurgeon and is board-certified in anti-aging medicine. He's also the founder of Senolytix, where his goal is to give patients additional years of healthy life. With that said, here's my conversation with Dr. Osborn. Enjoy. Hi, Brett, and welcome to Common Denominator.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It seems like your passion is human longevity. How'd that come to be? Why is that so important to you?
Right. So, I've been into, human performance, health optimization ever since I was younger. I grew up as the son, the older son of the oldest son of a practicing chiropractor, still practicing 55 years later. So I grew up in a very, very holistic house. That sort of morphed itself into, a quest for betterment and being able to perform well. I guess initially it had to do with athletics, and then subsequently, there was a parallel, obviously, in school, and just basically taking care of yourself to the best of your abilities, and that ultimately sort of resurfaced. I mean, it had always been present, but it sort of resurfaced after I got into school, and more specifically during residency at NYU. So that started out in 1996. After I finished medical school, I go to residency, and I'm realizing that the diseases that we're taking care of, whether it's spine degeneration, so arthritis of the spine, whether it's the cervical spine, the thoracic spine, lumbar spine, everybody knows people that have had herniated discs in their neck and their back, or even things like brain tumors, right, or cancers. A lot of these diseases, to a degree, were preventable diseases. So then this started taking on sort of a life of its own, and I started asking myself deeper questions like, why isn't the population sort of as a whole in mass trying to better themselves and prevent these hospitalizations, which not only cost them their lives and their livelihoods and time, but also money. How come we're not doing something preemptively in an effort to thwart the onset of these diseases or thwart the progression of the diseases once they surface? And that's really sort of the evolution. So my practice currently, it has several arms, right? So I do mostly neurosurgical trauma now, but I also have this longevity medicine practice, which focuses on health and human optimization.
You touch on the point. I know in the U.S. we spend trillions of dollars a year on healthcare, and I think I don't know exactly where we are as far as the 200 countries in the world, but we're not within the top 10 as far as our healthy lifestyle. Why do you think it is in reality in the U.S. with all the money that we're spending? Why is it that on the mass level, institutionalized? Why are we not healthier? Shouldn't we be? Shouldn't that exist?
Right, and it's a great question, and we have access to all of these technologies. And I just wrote a piece for mainstream media, who will remain unnamed at this point, just last week, and it said exactly that. And a lot of it has to do with number one, I think the population as a whole is uneducated with regard to their ability, as you had said preemptively before we even started this. And your wife knows, your family knows that there is the possibility, the potential to be better, to prevent these diseases. I think that doctors as a whole, physicians, healthcare, we do a bad job at educating. Also, people don't want maybe to know because they would rather look for the quick fix. There's an element of laziness in society today, as I'm sure you know. And quite frankly, and I am not somebody who is an advocate or a proponent of socialized medicine, but a lot of these countries which are healthier than the United States, they and en masse are educating the population as to the benefits of prevention and a healthy lifestyle. I think we do a very, very bad job of that here. And again, there is a lot of money in disease. So you sort of have to wonder if there's something more sinister going on. So I think it's a very, very good question. In other words, there was an allowance for people to get sick. And then there's this business of healthcare. There's this business of disease. And that's one of that's in chapter 1, of my book, Get Serious. It talks just about that. There's money in disease, not health. So there's not really impetus for anybody to really educate, the population at large that we can do better.
What I keep on doing on the show is telling people, information is free. We have the internet. Be critical thinkers. Use logic with the health space, with business, with legal, with anything that you're doing. And it's a $1 trillion a year market, healthcare.
That's right.
And reverse engineer things, right? So if we know we want to look like this and feel like this, what do I have to do? Just me. This is who I am. What do I have to search worldwide? What do I got to do to be like that? And don't assume anything. Look and read, right? That's always what I'm thinking about.
100%. And you certainly cannot rely on your physician to grant you health. That's one of the other underpinnings, of the book and this entire practice. We want, I hate to call them consumers, they're patients. We want an educated consumer. We want an educated patient. We want somebody who is vested in themselves, and it allows us to better treat them. I want them to come in and ask questions about what's the latest. I had a guy this morning in here about 3-4 hours ago who said, what's the latest and greatest in longevity medicine? And he's been a patient of mine for years. So I was talking to him a little bit about some of the things that I'm trying, because I typically will try all of these medications totally off label on myself for at least a year, maybe even more, prior to saying, you may consider this. This is what I've done. This is what I believe works, even though it's an off-label indication for the medication. Here's what I'm working on currently, or here's what I've worked on for the last couple of years. Let's go and let's try this, because it may work similarly for you. And there are a lot of medications. I'm not sure how well versed you are, with regard to the pharmaceuticals. There are a lot of medications which can be used in a different sense to help not treat a disease, but to help prevent disease and to treat disease risk factors, not the disease themselves. I've been taking metformin as an example, which is a diabetes drug, for about 15 years. I probably have written the most prescriptions for it for non-diabetics in the world. Literally, I tell you that. It was talked about in the book, which came out in 2014, right? So I'm a big proponent of that. I take rapamycin. These are things that are all sort of on the edge, but ultimately, these things will become more mainstream. We will drive them to become more mainstream, even though they're off-label. But again, we want people that are interested, that are invested, that, like you said, they're critical thinkers. They're looking around, they're researching, they're asking appropriate questions. And that's how we better our health, not only individually, but just as a whole. Okay. It's just a matter of finding these motivated people, right? Teaching them that there is another way. There's a better way. Yes.
And I know that, you have protocol to, for optimizing people's health span. What is kind of like in your practice, kind of top one or two things? I know in individual people, different ages, different situations. What are a couple of key points that you give to your patients?
Sure.
As far as longevity.
Yeah, and that's a great question. So if I were to choose two, okay, and these are you're going to say, well, that's obvious. But the underpinnings of the practice, there are really 5 underpinnings. I'm going to give you the sort of the top 2. In other words, not the underpinnings, the mainstays of treatment. First, it's clean up the nutrition. So you want to have that nutrition optimized, right? And then secondly is strength training. And I am not it sort of falls under the guise of exercise, but I'm not talking about exercise being activity, like walking on a treadmill. That does not count. I'm talking about strength training. And let me sort of segregate that down even further. Heavy strength training. Okay. We want to go into our later years with as much muscle, and I'm not talking about bodybuilding muscle, okay, which is with as much muscle, relatively speaking, as possible. Muscle is where our resilience lies, right? Muscle, it allows us to fight off disease. And there are complex pathways as to how and why that actually occurs. Muscle is associated with preservation of our brain function. Again, complex reasons, pathways, that dictate, these types of effects. So the top 2 would be clean up the nutrition, eat a low glycemic anti-inflammatory diet. That's what we use here. And heavy strength training. Those are the 2 big ones. You do those 2, right? You are going to be very, very close, okay, to your genetic potential, okay, within a year or 2. I promise.
So I know, you talk about like always like New Year's resolutions, right? So you have these patients and you give them protocol. Would you say it's more than 50% that actually follow strictly, what they're supposed to be doing? Because it seems like as humans, we're naturally, right? We just want that quick fix, give us the pill. Right. But do you, so they're coming to you and they're wanting these solutions. Do you find that actually people keep to the protocol over? A
very, very high, we know those numbers, a very, very high percentage of them do. And there's lots of reasons. There are lots of reasons why they do. And I can go into them, and some of them are, you may not think that, that is a reason why, but there are some reasons which are outside of medicine, if you will, that motivate these people to stick to it. I can go into them if you'd like. And again, one of them is going to be really outside of medicine, and I'm happy to share it with you if you'd like.
Yeah. No, for sure. I'd love to understand the idea.
Sure. Yeah. So one of the reasons why people fall off, let's just say you join LA Fitness, right? So you join LA Fitness or Planet Fitness or one of these gyms, right? Well, this is outside of medicine. So how much money are you going to spend when you join Planet Fitness? Well, you're going to spend $10 a month. Well, I would argue and tell you that if you have a clinic that is running at a higher price point, okay, just let's say that, right? There's going to be this glue, right? People don't want to waste money. And I know you're thinking, well, wait a minute, but it's true. One of the ways that you can reward people, one of the ways that you can make people, motivate people to do something, okay, is to pay them. Yeah. So if they're paying a decent price point by coming to the clinic, okay, there's going to be a tendency for them to stick. Okay. And that is totally extra medicinal. That has nothing to do with medicine. That has just to do with finance. Okay. But the main reason why they stick to it is because when they come to the clinic, right, it works, right? Because we drive their physiologies and their biochemistries extremely, extremely hard, even if they have bad habits. By using medications, we can almost drive their behaviors. We can drive their behaviors. We can drive their physiology to a more optimal physiology. And by virtue of that, the vast majority of the patients have very, very terrific results. And what do I mean by that? Well, not only do they feel better and they look better, but when we look at their biochemistry, because the battery of tests that we do is massive, and it is massive. It's not just blood work. It's echocardiograms. They're getting on an anthropometry scale, which tells them their body fat percentage, which tells them how much skeletal muscle mass they have on. We do cognitive tests on them. So by virtue of using multiple barometers and benchmarks, we can show them that they're doing better. So not only are they looking and feeling better, we can actually show them that they're getting healthier on the inside. That's the medical part of this stick-to-itiveness. So you have the extra medicinal part of it, like I said, the financial, okay, and then you have the medicinal aspects of it, which have to do with how we look, how we feel, okay, our biochemistry, our anthropometry, et cetera, how their heart's working, whether or not they're developing atherosclerosis in their carotids.
Just a quick reminder, this is the Common Denominator podcast. If you're enjoying this episode, we'd be grateful if you can leave us a 5-star rating and review, and subscribe to our YouTube page if you haven't already done so. Thanks so much. Now, back to the show. I was thinking about this. I know in medical school, I'm a layperson. I didn't go to medical school, but you seem like your top protocol is nutrition, and in medical school, it seems like it's very, very, if not at all, pretty much zero, right?
Zero.
Right. So you're going to medical school. You're seeing this. What's your thought of? I mean, the doctors are going out. We have, as a layperson, for many years, and you said not to rely on our doctors for our, right. And it's interesting to hear that because you would think that they should have more classes. If nutrition is super important, why don't we have more classes in nutrition in medical school?
It's truly everything. Okay. It's all founded on health is founded on on good nutrition. We've known that, right? Hippocrates, et cetera, right? Mm-hmm. We have known that. And it's the answer to your question is, I have absolutely no idea, but I can tell you that there is a bit more of a push nowadays to get nutrition integrated into medical school curriculums. And again, you can start being a conspiracy theorist, which I'm not, and come up with these sinister reasons as to why potentially it's not. In other words, well, there's sort of this undercurrent where people want us to be unhealthy, so then we can, the pharmaceuticals can make money on whatever it is, some sort of drug or vaccine, right? So they don't want to teach us how to prevent disease. And I will tell you that the emphasis, and I went to medical school more than 25 years ago. The emphasis on it, almost 30 years ago, the emphasis on it is zero. But again, there is this recent push towards the integration of it, because I think it's on more people's radar than it had been in the past. And again, the fact that we can move the needle naturally, if you will, without pharmaceuticals, and maintain our health to a great degree. Yes, as we get older and our biochemistry falters just by walking on this earth for 45, 50, 60 years, then there may need to be some sort of intervention from a pharmaceutical standpoint. But that's long before disease presents itself. If you are taking care of yourself, if you're not from the get-go and you're eating garbage all day, well, then you're going to be in trouble at an early age, right? Aging and age-related disease is just a product of accumulated damage that we've done to ourselves. It's self-inflicted.
And I also know from all your social media that you practice what you preach. Sure. Kind of, what is your for yourself? What does your kind of daily routine look like for self-care?
Right. So there's a lot of stuff going on sort of in the background, as you probably can imagine. There's a lot. But typically on non-training days, so today was a non-training day. I typically will train. I'll strength train, so it's mostly powerlifting, 3 days a week, and at least on 2 of the other 4 days of the week, I will do, maybe even 3. I will do some endurance work, and that's typically either some sort of walk, run, get on an ergometer or rowing machine, right, or do a push-up run, something like that, where I'm interspersing push-ups or flutter kicks into a walk or a run. Sometimes I'll swim. I have a lake in the backyard, so I'll go swim and then I'll run around the other side of the lake and then just repeat. But on my training days, not the endurance days, because the endurance stuff I typically do towards the latter half of the day, like maybe even the early evening. On my training days, I'm up at 4:15. And then I have sort of this ritual where I make before I get into the shower, I make a shake, which has a variety of, I'll call them foods in them. So I use, and again, I have no stock in the company. I use whey protein, and I also use this product that's called Huel, which is like human fuel, which is a complete food: protein, carbohydrates, fats. a nice complement of nutrients, and it's all plant-based. So I'll take Huel, I'll take some whey protein, I'll take some collagen protein to support my joints, because from all the powerlifting over the years, my joints are a little bit banged up. I'll put turmeric in there, ginger, various mushroom extracts. Then I'll put a scoop of natural peanut butter, some super green powder, beets, and a bunch of other little tinctures that I use, like astragalus. I use methylene blue, which is good for your brain. Hope you're writing this down.
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Blueberries, raw spinach, and then I'll blend that. While I'm drinking that, I'm usually in the shower drinking that during the warm phase of the shower. Okay, so I know you're going to say this is craziness. Okay,
no, it's your ritual. That's what habits and rituals is exactly the way we need to do it.
There's a reason why people have habits and rituals, right? Yeah. It's because I've time tested these over the years, and I know that they work. So during the warm phase of the shower, I'm typically sort of drinking that. I put it on the ledge, and I'll drink some more. It's big. It's about 40 ounces. Okay, that's a big, thick shape with a lot of nutrients in it. Okay. And also, as I'm showering, there's this diffuser I use. There's a lot of data on the use of essential oils, okay, and neurodegenerative disease. So I usually mix a bunch of essential oils inside this atomizer, this diffuser, and that's sort of percolating through the air while I'm in the shower, right? Then what I'll do is I'll finish my shake, and then I have a rig in my shower, which allows me to take a freezing cold shower, okay, which is about 50 degrees. So I'll stand under there for about 2 or 3 minutes. Then after I'm done with that, I'll get out and I'll read something positive for between 5 and 10 minutes, just to sort of get my mind, in a positive state. Then I'll mix a pre-workout, and then I'm off to the gym. I get back from the gym, shower. Okay. Usually we'll get another protein shake, not a whole science project like that one. And then it's, off to work. And the work is interspersed by, protein bars, protein shakes. Okay. Maybe some actual whole food. And then, I'll get home and, try to shut it down for the day, fairly early. So I try to get to bed somewhere around 10 o'clock in order to get that restorative sleep. And I'm historically a very, very bad sleeper because of all the trauma call that I take. So when I'm off trauma call, obviously I get much, much, much better restorative sleep than I do when I am on trauma call, which can be an absolute disaster. So that's my typical day. If my joints are banged up, or even if they're not, I'll get in the red light sauna, which we have in the office here. Like you do. You said you use a lot of red light stuff. Yes, and I think that's great. I also, during my training, I have a red laser, which I'm lasering my joints, namely my shoulders and my knees, during my extensive warm-up, which typically takes about 30 minutes before I even start any heavy lifting. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and that's just a couple of things. I didn't talk to you about my supplements. I take probably 100 supplements a day with a meal or a protein bar or a protein shake. A lot of stuff, going on in that realm as well.
But I'll tell you something. Every single successful person that I know, we talk about not just habits and rituals. It's what works. You're saying, in other words, what works for you to put you in the right mindset to do the best version of yourself.
Yep.
For the people you care about and the things that you're around, and to feel good. To bring that message out in the show is super important. That everybody, you have to find what works for you, and
absolutely,
So that's super important.
And if I could just interject, one thing, it all is sort of based upon that critical thinking that you had alluded to or mentioned before. You got to dig around. You got to ask a lot of questions, right? Don't believe everything you see on YouTube. As a matter of fact, believe very, very little. Do your own research. Get on PubMed. Start asking physicians if there happen to be progressive thinkers and are in this space, because there's a lot of information up here that I have gleaned from conversations, but also I would say mostly self-experimentation. And you have to do that as long as it's safe. Don't be afraid to do that. Just make sure, again, that if it has to do with anything that's medicinal or medications, please make sure you're doing it under supervision of a progressive physician. Because again, we're using medications in this clinic not to treat disease. I don't want the brittle diabetic in here. We're using medications in here to prevent diabetes and actually to make people better, which is a very, very interesting concept. I believe that the human, can be made better by using medical technologies, whether it's strength training, whether it's medications, whether it's supplements. That is one of the premises of this practice.
And I know you mentioned your book. What are the key, like, one or two top takeaways from Get Serious from your book that you wrote?
Yeah. So it has to do with personal empowerment. You can be a better version of yourself. You don't have to fall victim to these diseases. You don't have to be a statistic. And the foundations of that book are sort of the foundations of this clinic, which are nutrition, strength training, medications, supplements, and making sure you're keeping your stress levels down. Those are really the 5 foundations. And if you go and if you watch anything about blue zone regions, right? And this is long before Blue Zones, the series came out. This is just sort of common sense. This is what I've learned by living on this earth for 53 years. If you just do those things that they do in the blue zone regions, which are keep your nutrition right, stay active, so exercise, and they don't strength train like crazies, but they are very, very active people just in general. They socialize, right? So they keep their stress levels down by virtue of the fact that they socialize. And their supplements, well, they don't really take supplements. You don't really hear about them. Why? Because they are getting a lot of their supplements in the gardens. Yeah. That they're actually growing and they're harvesting themselves. So they make herbal teas, things that we would buy here. They're actually going and grabbing some roots out of the ground and that's their supplement. The only thing that you don't hear about in these blue zone regions where there are all these super centenarians, if you will, centenarian, super centenarian, you don't hear them taking lots and lots of medications. Yeah, probably don't need any of the medications because you don't have the diseases that they have here.
For sure. I want to ask you, what is something top of your mind that you're deeply grateful for?
That I'm deeply grateful for. That's a good question. I would say, my family, my wonderful family, my health. I would say those are, two of the most important, and also to be able to live in this free country that we do live in. Those are 3, I would say, are the big ones.
Amen. We should not take that for granted.
No, we should not, especially with what's going on.
For sure. And what is something about yourself that people don't know?
That people don't know. I'm not much. I'm pretty much an open book. I wouldn't say I am a private person, or I used to be a private person, but I'm trying to get this message out there when people ask questions. I mean, there's not much that people don't know or cannot know. If you ask me a question, I'm just going to tell you the straight truth. That's a great question. Yeah. I would ask you the same question. Is there something that people don't know about you?
I like that you're turning it on me.
Well, because I don't.
No. So I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you this. For me, I definitely, I also have my rituals and my habits, and one of them is a couple times a week, and I'm probably going to go to more times. I go -70 in a cryotherapy because it gets me so centered and so present, and it's just really, really great. I know you talk about the infrared sauna, and I do about 100 supplements a day. Right. So I have a lot of different processes and protocols. So I second a lot of the ideas that you're bringing out for sure.
Yeah. And what are you doing, if you don't mind me asking, what are you doing for your strength training?
So I do, it's facility here called Jet Set Pilates. So it's not regular Pilates. Mm-hmm. So it is the bands and the different levels of strength. So it's full body. So I do that. And I swim. Not that it's strength, but I do that for my cardio. So I swim and I do full body Pilates, which I find for me and my body type, I really feel that my core is getting stronger.
Yeah, and one of the things that if I could just as an aside, one of the things that you sort of find out very, very quickly with regard to powerlifting is that one of the ways to not get injured, and to best take care of your joints getting older, at least chronologically, right? Not necessarily biologically, but chronologically, is to make sure that your joints remain as mobile as possible, as mobile as possible. And Pilates probably grants you that, and it probably makes your joints feel good, and it's very, very low impact, or there's no impact at all, which is a little bit different than than powerlifting, which tends to be a little bit more traumatic on the joints. But one of the ways that you can mitigate that is by staying mobile, by doing things like Pilates, anything that is really accessing not so much the heavy resistance, but more so is geared towards getting the joints mobile, and that unto itself will thwart the development of these degenerative processes that affect the joints, arthritis, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that that's smart of you to do that.
Because I know I have one son who is doing a lot of powerlifting, and he's trying to convince me to move towards, let's go to the gym, 3 hours, go hard. And then my other son is more, is more kind of that lighter, just staying very lean and a different body type. And they're both disciplined, which I like.
Yeah.
117, 115, and I'm 43, and I'm trying to tweak again, like you're saying. You're going through your own journey, and it changes every 10 years, every 5 years. It changes, and I just like you and a lot of other people, our days are full, and you want to feel good and have energy all day. That's the
correct.
Goal. That's
correct.
The goal. And Brett, I want to thank you so much. Really, this has been great information. Really appreciate it. How can people follow you on social or be in touch with you?
Sure. So the name of the practice is Senolytix. So it's www.senolytix, SENO, like senescence, which means getting older, or aging, and lytics, LYTIX. .io. Lytics, when you lyse something, that means that you destroy something. So it's a play on the word senolytic, which is an age-busting drug. So it's www.senolytix.io, and Facebook is just under Dr. Brett Osborn, Osborn, and the first name is Brett. But I very much appreciate you having me. It's been a pleasure. And I continue to spread that good word and the good message that you already are. I think it's terrific.
Yeah, we gotta try to give practical tools to as many people 100%. As possible. That's very 100%. Important. Thank you so much, Brett. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Dr. Osborn. Next week, our guest is me. We're going to answer questions about business and real estate and everything in between. So if you have any questions for me, please send it in. And my good friend, Dave Azer, is back in the host seat, and it'll be a great show. Please subscribe to our YouTube page so you never miss an episode. And if you're currently listening to the show, we'd be grateful for a 5-star rating and review. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon.